Hello everyone. In this chapter, we will share some behind-the-scene information on what really happens when Source speaks through you. To give you that understanding, I would like to share with you the details of my first time allowing Source and what that felt like. Let's begin. Your first time is something that you never forget, especially when it is allowing Source to speak through you for the very first time. It would be a monumental moment in your life that you would cherish for the rest of your existence. Mine happened on my birthday because their timing is just perfect. Imagine what a birthday gift that is. Generally speaking, on our birthdays we go on vacations. However, on this particular birthday, we were occupied with many things and didn't plan a vacation. So the plan was to just relax at home and go through our daily rituals and just enjoy the day. In the morning, we started our daily ritual, which includes things like meditation, breath work, and other daily practices that we have. My meditation was very deep that day, and as I was coming out of it, I noticed that my eyes were seeing differently, and I was a little bit confused trying to figure out why. Soni was already out of her meditation and she was sitting on a chair looking at me. She started to realize what might be happening, and the reason why she realized it is because out of the 3 people that allow Source in our family, she was the first one who started allowing Source in their fullness. However, it wasn't vocal yet, meaning they weren't speaking through her yet. So she started to suspect that something similar might be happening with me, and just at that moment, Source inspired her to ask me this question: who are you? The moment she asked that question, the words poured out of my mouth: you know us well. You know us as Abraham. And that's when I felt the majestic nature of this experience. Let me break it down for you. When I came out of that meditation, my vibration had reached a point where it was in the vicinity of the Source vibration. And when Soni asked her question, Source started pouring into my being, and my consciousness expanded rapidly to merge with the Source consciousness, and my vibration expanded rapidly to merge with the Source vibration. It was like a small magnet, me, rushing towards the biggest magnet ever, Source, to merge and become one with each other. It was such a smooth process that instantly flooded me with the most intensely delicious emotions. It was the greatest feeling I had ever experienced in my entire life up until that point. I experienced emotions to a level that I never imagined possible. For example, I've experienced love and joy and bliss and other positive emotions many times in my life, and those moments have been wonderful. However, the intensity of the emotions that I experienced during the merging was amplified exponentially. I did not even know that my physical body was capable of feeling love and joy to such amazing levels. I experienced intense bliss. I felt absolute freedom. I was flooded with overwhelming amount of appreciation, and the knowledge and the wisdom of the entire universe was suddenly part of my being. As part of this merging, everything that I had learned as a human being, all of my education, knowledge, and experience were instantly validated against the knowingness of Source, and everything that was in harmony became pronounced. In that moment, my consciousness knew with certainty that I had become one with Source. So, you may be wondering, why was everything so heightened? It is because Source is the purest resistance-free vibration there is. When the merging took place, I got to experience the purest levels of joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation, and more. And believe me, those feelings are worth experiencing. The next thing that happened was that my consciousness took the passenger seat and the Source consciousness took the driver's seat so that they can speak with Soni. This was a relatively smooth transition. This was the first time Source was actually speaking through me, and it was super interesting because when they started speaking, the cadence was different. The delivery was different. The flow was different. The tone was different. And there was newness to it, like the first time you ride a bicycle or first time you drive or play golf. And it went on like that for a period of time. While they were speaking with Soni, I realized something else that answered one of my long-standing questions. While they were verbally speaking with Soni and answering her questions using human words, they were also seamlessly and simultaneously communicating with me internally. This internal communication was taking place between our two consciousnesses, and it was efficient, instantaneous, and understood perfectly. It was vibrational communication. I had always wondered how Abraham knew which ones of Esther's personal stories to share while they were on stage answering questions, because some stories are too personal to be shared with the public. Now I know the answer. When our consciousnesses merged, all of my being, including my preferences, became one with Source. Not only did they know all of my preferences, they could also obtain moment-to-moment permissions from me through this internal vibrational communication between the two consciousnesses. It was really amazing to experience that. My first time allowing Source was just the beginning of our transformation, and as time passed, we witnessed experiences even more amazing. And as you hear those words, you may think that Soni and I are just lucky and things just happened for us easily. If you knew how much contrast we've been through in this life, you would realize it wasn't anything like that. Let me take you back to the time when I first came to America and give you a small glimpse of the contrast that I had to endure. It was the 90s. I had just finished high school in India and I was getting ready for college when my family was presented with the opportunity to send me to America. The problem was, I did not speak English or know much about America. This was the time when computers and internet were still in their infancy and Google, smartphones, and social media did not exist at all. Access to the information was primitive, limited, and international communication was very difficult. Sending an 18-year-old to a faraway foreign country was much scarier than it is today. Therefore, my father took measures to ensure that I would be okay. He made a deal with my uncle, who had lived in America most of his life. The deal was that my uncle would look after me and help me go to college, and I would pay him back for his help when I was able. I was a quick learner and very good in school, therefore no one had any doubts that I would become successful enough to pay him back generously. Making deals like this is common among immigrants, so it did not raise any concerns. What we did not know was that my uncle had a vested interest in a motel in Georgia, which was in financial trouble. They needed someone to labor for free, and an 18-year-old who did not speak English or have the skills to survive in America on his own was a perfect candidate. So instead of going to college, I ended up in that rundown motel on exit 69 of I-75, slaving away from early morning to late night for a can of soda and a meal. I could not contact my family because making international calls was not possible from the motel rooms, and because of my limited communication skills, I was unable to ask for help from any guests at the motel. After many months of relentless labor, I was exhausted and malnourished. My hopes and dreams were almost dead. Yet, there was a strong desire within me to survive. I realized that if I can improve my English, it would help my situation. So I would take a newspaper from the motel and attempt to read it, and highlight the words that I did not understand. I would then look up those words in my English to Gujarati dictionary and learn what they meant. I would also listen to the TV while cleaning motel rooms and repeat the dialogues out loud to improve my accent. In due time, I was having basic conversations with guests at the motel. My improved ability to communicate threatened my oppressors, so they became more aggressive in their control, threats, and manipulations. They realized that I was becoming more confident, and I was gradually starting to resist their oppression. So, on one stormy night at that motel in Georgia, they took a final jab at me to crush my spirit once and for all. They fabricated some false accusations and told me that they will call the police and get me locked up unless I agree in writing to comply with all of their demands going forward. Instead of complying, I asked them to call the police in the hopes that when I get out of jail, I would be free of my slavery. So my uncle picked up the phone and pretended to dial 3 digits on the phone. Surprisingly, he hung up after a few seconds and claimed that the line was busy. Even I knew that 911 was not going to be busy in that sleepy little town in Georgia. In my innocence, I had actually called their bluff. They knew it, and I knew it. So, frustrated by the failure of their devious plot, they threw me out of the motel on that stormy night with only the clothes that I was wearing. They had hoped that being homeless and helpless on a stormy night would scare me enough to come back begging. That night, I became homeless, but I still had hope. However, it didn't last very long. Just a few days later, the reality of being homeless really started to sink in. It was another stormy night, and I was staring at a dumpster in a nearby town where I was sheltering, and I knew that my situation was hopeless. I was 18 years old, homeless in a country that I did not understand, without survival or language skills. I thought that my life would most likely end behind that dumpster, and my parents wouldn't even know what happened to me. My thoughts took a dark turn that night, and I decided to end my life instead of suffering any further. So I prepared myself for it, and just before I was ready to do it, I thought of saying a prayer because I was so afraid and didn't know what would happen after I transitioned. So I closed my eyes and prayed to the best of my ability. When I opened my eyes, another thought came in and inspired me to look around at this world one last time before I say my goodbye. So I started to look around, and I realized that the storm had passed and some light was now pouring in through an opening in the clouds. Just at that moment, another whisper came in, and it was something like, "What's your hurry? You still have clothes on your body and some food in your belly. Maybe go on for another day and see what happens. And if it gets really bad, you can always end it then." That whisper was enough to save my life. I did not know it then, but I know it now. That was my inner being, my source, soothing and guiding me with every whisper. And it is because of that loving guidance from my inner being that I am alive today to experience this beautiful life with Soni and Source. Guess what? Your inner being is doing the same with you, with every moment of your life. So if you think you have it bad today, if you think you are in the middle of a contrast that is too big to handle, and if you think you're alone, think again. Give Source a chance, and I can promise you that they will carry you through your contrast just the way they carried me. Now that Source speaks through me, there is one thing I know so clearly. I know that Source loves me unconditionally, and I know that you too are loved. Remember that, always.